Hi, how's everyone doing? Hope you're having a good day. Wanted to talk to you today about corruption. If you've been following, you know I have these little text-rich document pads that I open up. They've transformed a little bit in the short amount of time that I've been doing YouTube videos, Bitchute videos. Covering a new subject today, corruption. This is something that I really want to get to the heart of. That I have a system in my mind that it's going to not make things perfect. I don't believe in that trash for 1 second. But I do believe in that things can be made better. So perfection it's fantasy, but it's also, that's a good way of putting this. There's nothing wrong in believing perfection, but you have to understand that perfection can be attained. But if you believe in perfection correctly, then it should mean something along the lines of that it's a never-ending fight to continue to make things better. That no matter what it is, that can be made better. Even if it's just by a little bit, you can do this better, you can do that better, this can be made better, that can be made, whatever. It's like, yeah, that's good. Do not become complacent. Do not just stop. Just don't give up. Make things better, improve. Anyways, this is all coming about because I saw a video from the Officer Tatum YouTube channel. The title of the video is Mom Goes Off on the School Board Over CRT, Critical Race Theory. I'll have links in the description below for the videos, maybe a couple of the articles, just kind of depending on what it is, but definitely the videos. And I was watching his video and thinking, she's not doing anything. She really isn't. This is just, I'm afraid to say, virtue signaling. I agree with everything that she said, but that's all she's doing. She's just up there grandstanding. So maybe she's not virtue signaling. She could be 100% sincere with it, but because her actions are nothing, it's just, it kind of falls into that virtue signaling. I want to change things. I do not want to be some hashtag warrior. I'm not 100% sure what that is. I know it's going on to Twitter and Facebook, and just what I'm referring to is people that go on to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and they hashtag and they tweet, and it's like, oh yeah, look at this, I found something that's wrong. Aren't I such a good person? It's like, you haven't done anything either. You're no different than this woman who's standing up complaining about things. There are actions that you can take. It's just like that song. I'm going to have to pull it up. So I don't know too much about Tom McDonald. I just heard about him because of a video called Snowflake, and then this one was really popular. But at the end of it, I mean, he nails it. This video's been viewed almost 20 million times, and it's called People So Stupid. So we're going to listen to a little bit of the end of it right here.
Look, I get it, it's like the world is going crazy. Seems like a school shooting happens almost daily. The racism, rape culture, hatred that we're facing is way too ingrained for our hashtags to change it. We've become so lazy and complacent, afraid of our generation. We think activism's Instagramming memes and complaining. It's a problem when there's actually actions you could be taking, but you're triggered, so you just cry like a baby.
I love it, man. He just summed that up so well. Your hashtags don't do anything. Absolutely not. And the same thing with this woman here. But what other actions do you have, though? There's not zero actions that you can take. There are. It's hard, it's difficult, and it's because there's nothing there to kind of deal with this. But we're going to listen to Officer Tatum and this woman here who's at a school board meeting.
If you ever wondered, as a parent, and I get this all the time, and I think parents are incredibly concerned at what they see in these school systems and whatever, they don't know what to do.
That's right. So whenever I was watching this video, I was thinking, Not quite at first, but whenever she was talking, it just kind of occurred to me. It's like, well, what is she really doing? Has she really accomplished anything? Or whenever she's done with this, are things just going to go back to normal? And there's some problems. Assuming that what she's saying is correct. I didn't look into it because I don't care about that. There's something that's associated with this that I do care about, and it's the corruption that's going on within our society. And these are things that I 100% firmly believe in, that we can make these things better.
Well, I'll tell you one thing you got to do. You need to do what she is doing.
I'm going to disagree with that. I mean, it's nice to bring awareness to a point, but you have to have something more besides words. If you don't have the actions to back it up, then I don't care who you are. You're a liar. Intentional or not.
You need to do what she did in this video. This is how you talk to a city council. This is how you stand up for your kids. Don't ask me no more. This is what you do. Watch this like Michael Jordan watching when you go.
Good evening. My name is Tatiana Ibrahim, and I'm here for the first time. I'm here tonight not only as a community member, but as a parent in this district. Recently, you sent out a survey wanting to know why parents were not voting yes for this budget. So my situation,
So that's kind of a problem too, right there, is that if the whole community is voting against this budget, why haven't they kind of come together, talk about this, and become a force to reckon with?
my vote for no is a little different. I think the Board of Education and those sitting on the panels are thieves.
Okay, so that's a slur. That's not a talking point.
I think they're liars and have committed treason against our children.
Again, those are just slurs. I think she does kind of get into it a little bit, but those aren't points for an argument.
My message to this district and the members of the Board of Ed: stop indoctrinating our children. Stop teaching.
Okay, so there's a point. She wants the indoctrination to stop. She needs to kind of clearly define all this a little bit more. But
Teaching our children to hate the police.
okay, so indoctrinating them into what? Hating the police.
Stop teaching our children that if they don't agree with the LGBT community, that they're homophobic.
Yeah, stop using slurs against these children if they don't agree with you.
You have no idea each child's life. You don't know what their family lifestyle consists.
In other words, what she's talking about is that you're ignorant. There's no way that you know all of these children, all of these families, and what's going on with them. You have no clue whatsoever.
You don't know the makeup of their life. You have children like mine who is Muslim, and I'm Christian.
I have to say, that's weird. I don't understand that one.
Or according to Miss Cyrus, she's too pasty white.
Oh, I like that. So something that she does do is that she calls some of these people out specifically by name. And it's like, yes, absolutely, 100%. There needs to be accountability for this. And part of the problem is that there are people who are higher up who are unaware of the activities that are going on at the school.
What you gonna do? More, I'm gonna put the full video in the little reservation.
Ma'am.
And they try to tell her not to say the names.
Talking about calling for the death of a former president who
There you go.
took it upon himself with Miss Cyrus to create a curriculum.
Oh, here we go.
Do you want the proof? I have the proof. You created a curriculum of Black Panther indoctrination.
Ma'am,
You use taxpayers'
Trying to stop it.
dollars.
Trying to
one
stop
more
her.
time.
And they cry about, well, you gotta be peaceful. You should be peaceful and fair. She sounds right to me. They don't want nobody to get on their rear end. Get them, mama. Get them.
Proof that a parent actually standing up against all of you?
I'm going to fast forward to the point where she actually calls out a bigger problem with all this.
Is that what scares you, to call out the names of these people? A duty. We are entrusting our values when they were officer. It's our fault. You're emotionally abusing our children and mentally abusing them. You're demoralizing still America, ma'am. Sitting here on this good ground fight.
Go, Mama. Go.
Last of
Go.
me you will
Go,
see.
Mama. Go.
I have nothing else but peacefully, or we can take it because you know parent fighting is right now. Schools are trying to teaching them about no right to be taught in school. So
if you don't mind, I'm just
We know patient and normally.
normally I'm just gonna.
All right, so this is something that I do not like. This happens a lot, and that is we don't want to talk about it in front of the cameras and in the mic. I'll do it in my office or your office.
If you don't mind, I'm just.
We normally have a peaceful conversation, and normally people just kiss our rear end and just talk and say whatever we want to say. No, she using words. Come on, Mama.
how many families are struggling to pay the fees? You want to teach kids these things? Don't infringe.
Let me pause it and go find it. So this part here is real cringy, at least it is to me.
All are here. We have rights. We have rights.
And you're making general assumptions.
No, I'm not making assumptions. I'm not.
Because you-
I know what I'm speaking about. See,
But
I don't
I'm not-
agree
I'm not
with you,
gonna
so it's an assumption.
Well, I'm not going to engage in a back and forth with you about this. So if you would like to make an appointment, I would be happy to sit with the superintendent.
I don't want to.
Oh, this happens so often. I have some other videos where this goes on with Congress, with politicians, where they're going over the presidential nominations for like the assistant secretary general or something like that, and they're asking questions, and then they deflect. And they deflect by saying, I'd be more than happy to be able to come and sit down with you in your office and answer these questions. It's like, no, wrong. The whole purpose of having this hearing is to ask you direct questions and get direct answers, not to go behind closed doors. There's no deals to be made here. This is transparency. You don't get to deflect this in any way, but it happens constantly. And that's exactly what this woman's doing. She's saying, I don't want to be held accountable for this. I'm not going to be responsible for all this. I'm going to go behind doors and I'm going to try to bribe you, threaten you, whatever their tactics is that they want to use, whatever it is that they have. And she's absolutely right for not going and doing this. It's like the whole purpose of this is to let everybody know what's going on. It's garbage. Screw these people. Screw these politicians. And they're on all different levels. State, federal, local, these school board members or whatever. It's schools are, funded by the taxpayers. So, and I think this is also where she does something else here. That
To the superintendent, the assistant superintendent already sent an email and stated that they had no idea that these books were being put in the students' hands. The superintendent already stated that they had no idea that the funds of taxpayers were supporting this. Black Panthers. Do you know Black Panthers is a domestic terrorist group? Do you know that it was?
Oh man, man, these people on this board just infuriate me beyond belief. Because they're not being held accountable for anything. And this is where I want to stop it here with his video. And I'll have a link in the description below. So if you want to watch the whole thing. And then he has a link to this woman here at this. I don't know how long this video is being recorded. It's like, where's the accountability? This is corruption. This is 100% corruption. The superintendent and the assistant superintendent have no idea that this is going on. That they're just allowed to run amok and do whatever the hell it is that they want to do. It's like, no. Well, why is the school there? Part of the problem is that we don't have it clearly defined. What should a school be doing? It should be helping integrate students into being productive members of society. So in other words, they need to know how to read and write and do math, understand the economic system and the legal system, so that whenever that way they're going out into the world, to whichever country that they live in, they can engage in it. So if everything's up in like Chinese or Mexican or whatever, how are you supposed to deal with that? What if they're using their current peso or their current currency? How many different countries and how many different languages are out there? It's like, are you supposed to learn them all? There's over 200 nations out there. You can easily say that there's easily 50 different languages and 50 different currencies out there. How many languages do you know? Why should you have to learn any of them? you should learn whichever country it is that you're a part of. And so you need to learn about your culture, your society, your traditions, all that, so that you can go out there and whatever it is that you want to do, you now have the tools to be able to go out there and do it. It's like, I don't want to hear about your politics. I don't want to hear about your personal ideology. I just want to buy my groceries. I don't want to see somebody all dressed up, all freaky and weird or whatever. It's just like, you would not want to have somebody performing surgery on someone who you loved, who looked like they just rolled out of a gutter, who had alcohol on their breath, who had holes all over in their arms because they're shooting up, that smells like they haven't washed in a couple of weeks. It's like, no, we expect certain things from our doctors and our medical staff. We expect to see them in a white coat with a stethoscope and computer equipment around them, sophisticated equipment, to be highly educated. That's what we expect. It's just like, you would also not expect the doctor to look like a mechanic or a plumber or electrician or even a lawyer. It's like, no, if you're having brain surgery done, if they can't even look like a brain surgeon, you know, if you're a police officer, or it is illegal for you to impersonate an officer. That's fraud. You will get arrested for impersonating an officer. Whenever it comes to the government and the government jobs, they don't play games with that. Go and act like a judge. See what happens to you. So we start these off by defining exactly what is corruption. And so corruption here, and take all of this with a grain of salt, because there's a big problem with all this stuff, and that is, it's hard to trust in things whenever there's no system of trust at all with any of this. I'm going to deal with this nonsense. Anyways, so this SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, for my forum here is, we have the title Corruption, and as I say in all of these, and it's because it's written right here or typed up here, this is not about changing your minds. I'm not here to change one person's mind. If you get into some kind of argument telling me that I need to change my mind, then you are an idiot. You are not listening to what I'm saying. I am flat out telling you that the whole purpose of all of these videos is to show that there are lies. If you're not talking about lying, then you're just as dumb as a box of rocks, because I say this constantly. Leave it open for people to bring information and talk it over. That's it. I want y'all to talk it over. This website that I'm going to build, that's how it's going to be. It's going to be people sorting this out. It's just this huge, insane, stupid system of sorting all this stuff out. Because I want to give the most accurate, up-to-date information possible. And I can go into great details about all this stuff, but I'm worried about somebody taking this, twisting it into some kind of trash. It wouldn't stop me, but it would definitely slow me down. And it's like, no, I don't want to make it any more difficult than I need it to be. So, corruption, here on Wikipedia, is defined by the World Bank. I don't know why they're using the World Bank to define this. You know, why this isn't put in the hands of, like, Webster's Dictionary or something like that, where that's their thing, is to have vocabulary words and definitions. I don't understand that. What qualifies the World Bank for this? Anyways, it is a form of dishonesty or criminal offense undertaken by a person or organization entrusted with a position of authority, so that's definitely the government, to acquire illicit benefit or abuse power for one's private gain. Corruption may include many activities, including bribery and embezzlement, although it may also involve practices that are legal in many countries. Political corruption occurs when the office holder or government employee acts in official capacity for personal gain. It's like, yep, that sounds good enough. So what is the government? Because we are specifically kind of talking right now, at least, with the government. And the government is the official collective use of force under the authority of a So the government is the official collective use of force under the authority of a rule called law. And that's really it. The government is not a company. It doesn't produce anything. That's not it. It collects taxes. That's how it gets its money for funding for all this stuff. Well, what does the government really do? It is a monopoly of force. You don't comply, they're going to send the police to you, or FBI, or whoever, some kind of official government authority to deal with you with whatever it is that's going on. I also wanted to talk about federalism, and this is on Wikipedia again as well. Let's go ahead and pull that up. The Wikipedia definition for this. Federalism is a mixed or compound mode of government that combines a general government, the central or federal government, with regional government. So we have the federal government, we have state governments. So it lists some of these regional governments, province, a province, state, cantonal, I've never heard of that one, territorial or sub-unit governments in a single political system. Its distinctive feature first embodied in the Constitution of the United States of 1789. It was first embodied in the Constitution of the United States. So this is a fairly new kind of concept here. Is a relationship of its distinctive feature first embodied in the Constitution of the United States of 1789 is a relationship of parity between the two levels of government established. It can thus be defined as a form of government in which powers are divided between two levels of government of equal status. So they're supposed to be equal, the federal government and the state governments. And in a way, they kind of do that today. I mean, Texas has on more than one occasion told the federal government to go shove it, and I love it. And then I wanted to define also a little bit here, not quite directly, checks and balances. The principle of checks and balances has come to be thought of only in terms of limiting or checking each branch. I have a problem with this, and has power to limit or check the other two, which creates a balance between the three separate branches of state. The principle introduces one branch to prevent either of the other branches from becoming supreme, thereby securing political liberty or political freedom. The problem that I have with this is that this is the government checking on the government. The judicial is kind of a little bit better than the other two, because if you're a judge, you're not supposed to have any kind of political affiliation. You're not supposed to be a Republican or a Democrat, in other words. But how do you do that? You can tell by their previous rulings whenever they were a judge at a lower court and they move up to a federal court, for example, or the Supreme Court. You know which way that they lean, for the most part. And they definitely are going to favor those politicians, and that's not it's supposed to be as neutral as possible. Easier said than done. And so, of course, the three checks and balances within the government comes from the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. So it's Congress, which is the House and the Senate. The executive is the president, and the judicial is the court system, the Supreme Court. So now that we have all of that, let's get into this a little bit here. So how can we deal with corruption? What are some things that we can do? I don't want to be any kind of hashtag warrior or virtue signaling person who's just up there grandstanding, because it doesn't do anything. I'm glad that that woman got up there. I agree. I think just about everything that she said. Maybe not. I didn't listen to the whole thing. But from what I did hear, I agreed with what she was talking about. So I wanted to talk about this video with Jordan Peterson and, what was his name? With Senator Mike Lee. This is from the Jordan B. Peterson YouTube channel. The title of the video is Government as Force. Senator Mike Lee, Jordan B. Peterson, podcast, season 4, episode 14. I'm not going to show the whole thing. I'll have a link in the description below if you want to watch the entire thing. It's roughly an hour and a half long. It is a really good video. I'm really impressed with Senator Mike Lee and what he's talking about with all of this. But there's just a couple of pieces that I want to pick out of this. So there's going to be 3 to 5 of these little pieces that I want to take. And I want to start off with this one here. And he's kind of giving a little bit of a history lesson of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence here.
It's done this,
and he's proclaiming as to why things are so good.
not because the document itself has any magical powers, or the words themselves do, but because the document itself recognizes that the sovereigns in our system are the people. The people have a right to be free.
I think this is so important. This is the founding philosophy of America, with the Declaration and the Constitution, with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For the people, by the people. Not for the government, by the government. Absolutely not. We fought the British to get away from the king and queen and the royalty of England, that we were tired of being taxed without representation. We were tired of this kind of ruling class elite always telling everyone what to do. And we went away from that. And we said, we're going to make this nation about the people. Well, yeah, if one person can do good, well, what if you have 2 people? Aren't 2 heads better than 1? Well, then wouldn't 4 heads be better than 2? 8 better than 4, and 16 better? So what if you got everybody in on this, and they were all doing the best that they could? How much better would things be? You're not going to sell me for 1 second that there's just these magical group of people who's just better than the rest of us. No, absolutely not. And this is kind of capitalism versus communism. Now, I tell you what, you can look at night with photographs of up in orbit with North Korea and South Korea. North Korea is just, it's like the Stone Age. They don't hardly have any lights at night. And South Korea is lit up like a freaking Christmas tree. Because South Korea is capitalism, North Korea is communism, and you know what North Korea does? Whatever Kim Jong-un wants. You know what South Korea does? What everybody wants. Or at least it's more towards doing as much for the people as you possibly can. I mean, of course, there's limits. You know, you just can't go out and murder and rape and steal. And I'm going to touch on this again through more videos about capitalism versus communism, and individualism versus socialism, kind of all this to keep people free. After World War II, the Chancellor of Germany at the time came in on Sunday whenever everybody was home, and he just abolished all these laws, and then its economy just skyrocketed. That there's a lot of historical strengths towards the argument of individualism and making a country free for people. You see this right now with COVID in America, with the states where the Democrats have locked down their states. They're not doing anything. They're not producing anything. They're having shortages of all kind. And with the red states where they haven't locked anything down and they're still producing, we don't have all those problems. Tim Pool talks about how they're having shortages with meat and chicken and all this stuff, and it's like, we're not having any shortages here in Texas. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe there are in some places, but where I'm at, there's not a damn thing going on here. It's just business as normal. Now, I suspect that there are some things going on because what affects one part of the country affects another, but it's not that nonsense. It's like we got chicken coming out our butts over here. We got beef all over the place. You know why? Because people are working. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You know, if you have $1 million and inflation is skyrocketed, or if nobody's just working because everybody's just been given free money, it's like it doesn't matter. If you're given like $2,000 a month or $1 million a month? Who's going to work? What are you going to spend it on if there's nothing out there to buy? So, moving on. So in this little part, he's talking about how the government and the use of force is just a part of life. It's necessary. And he gives some examples as to how it's a necessary part of life, that you cannot escape government, because we all need to use force in some way, and we want to use the least amount of possible force. And so I'm going to let him kind of flesh this out a little bit more right now.
It's dangerous, just like each of those things. And unless kept carefully in check, it will become dangerous because
Yes, it needs to be put in check, because the use of the government can absolutely be a dangerous tool to use. Oh man, he just nails it.
it's run by fallible, mortal human beings.
That's right. You are not going to tell me for 1 second that just because somebody hits some position in some government office that they got elected to there, that they're now some kind of saint, that there's some kind of angel fallen from heaven or some kind of nonsense like that. No, they're not. That's still Dan or Mike or Jennifer or whatever, and they're capable of doing horrible things just like any other person on the planet.
That's essential to our understanding of the Constitution, is the fact that human beings have infinite and eternal value.
That's right. That all of us, me, you, everyone, we're all capable of doing great good or great harm.
They are flawed, but they're redeemable. And we've got to make sure that power checks power.
There you go. Power checks power. And that's what we don't have. Because with the checks and balances, it's all just with the government. And what it's missing is the power of the people to put the government in check. Where was that lady's ability and all those other parents when, it shouldn't have been, well, we've rejected this bill. It's like, okay, well, they need more power because they're putting in curriculum that they don't want. Because I'm sure there's many of them who are thinking, how's critical race theory going to help my kids work? To either go work at a company or to start their own business. How does it attain that goal? It's not to say that, yes, we want people to be treated fairly and equally, but how far is critical race theory, which to me, from my understanding, that sounds like it's racism. And they've just changed the wording up into nonsense, because whenever you start looking at the definition for that, it's like, how is this a thing? Isn't this illegal? Because they're dividing up people based on their race and their color and where they were born and their sex, and it's like, what are you talking about? No, whenever you're talking about things that you cannot change your X and Y chromosomes, you cannot change your uterus, your vagina, your penis, you cannot change where you were born, the color of your skin. That's trash. Screw that nonsense. You cannot control that stuff. It's nobody's fault. There's nothing to be ashamed of with any of that either. If you're a man, woman, black or white, you are what you are. Be proud. There's nothing wrong with it. But that's not what they're teaching. So, moving on. All right, so here's a little bit more clarification. I'm just going to let him speak on this.
At earlier times of human development, and in some parts of the world to this very day, government has best been understood as it being embodied. The government authority is embodied in a single sovereign, a monarch, a Caesar, a king, a queen. In our system of government, we recognize that immense danger exists in the concentration of power in the hands of the few. And so we split up the sovereign authority to make sure that it really belonged ultimately to the people. We split up government authority along two axes. First, on the vertical axis with something we call federalism. It was embodied in the text of the original Constitution and later emphasized in the 10th Amendment, adopted a few years later. But it says basically that most power in the United States of America will be exercised at the state and local level.
Oh, man, yes. The problem with having a king or a queen or a Caesar or a czar is that what makes that person so good? How do you find these wonderful, miraculous people? I don't know of any time, anywhere, anywhere around the world for any institution where they found this holier than thou art, wonderful saint of a person, this angelic being that just knew everything, was infallible, incorruptible. It's like, when does this happen? Now, there have been some good people out there in the world, but we don't have any idea of creating any kind of system to be able to find these diamonds in the rough. Because if we did, then why doesn't everybody use this everywhere for everything? Because there isn't one. Part of it is that, well, people have different ideas of what good is. You know, it's like Christians are going to have a different view than what Jews do, versus Muslims, versus the KKK, versus those extremists, versus Buddhists, versus Hinduists. They're all going to have a different idea. Some of them a little bit, some of them real big differences as to what they think good is. And so that's why it's impossible, because there's just too many different opinions as to right and wrong and good and evil. So we're set up to stop that, so that there's not one power, just one train of thought to be able to do that, you know what, we can all get along peacefully. Part of it is that, you know what, you mind your own business. And how's the best way to do it? Deal with your own community. I'm sure you've heard this before. Somebody saying something along the lines of, why the hell is somebody in Washington telling me how to live my life? They don't know me. They don't know one damn thing about me. They don't know about my family, my parents, my children, my spouse, my financial level, my education. They don't know anything about me. They don't know what my goals are in life. They don't know my religious views. They don't know any of this stuff. And even if they did, they wouldn't like it. And still it would be like, who cares? There are plenty of people out there in the world who are doing things that I hate. Same thing with you. There are people out there who are doing things that you absolutely hate, and the world goes on. There's only a few basic things that I really want, and that is, do not assault people, whether it's physically or sexually. That's all for something else. Anyways, and I'll get into those videos. I will. I absolutely will. But I want to stick on corruption right now.
By the people.
Now, there's a principle, if
I
I
like
remember
this.
correctly,
And if you happen to know this principle, could you let me know in the comments below? Because I've not heard of this before. He doesn't name the principle. He's trying to remember this. This just kind of came up kind of randomly for him. So if you happen to know this, let me know, because I would like to dive into it at least a little bit more.
I really like this principle. I believe it was developed in England, in Great Britain, and maybe it's part of the Scottish Enlightenment.
So he doesn't even know if it was in England or if it was with the Scots, with the Scottish Enlightenment. But that does narrow it down a little bit.
An issue should be dealt with by the most local authority capable of dealing with it. And so that...
Yes. Well, why should people in Washington be telling this lady how their school system needs to be run? Or any school system? That if you want critical race theory and everybody wants that, go ahead, knock yourself out, more power to you. But if you don't want it, then it shouldn't be forced down your throat. Why should you be forced to support something that you don't agree with? And especially if everyone else there also agrees with you. What kind of nonsense is that? If you want to focus in on something else, great.
That's one way of deciding, of noting that authority has to be distributed across multiple levels, but also of determining who should be in charge.
And then I wanted to, I'm going to look up this other little segment about this Somerville camp. All right, so this was kind of spur of the moment. It wasn't too hard. So the Cambridge Somerville Youth Study was the first large-scale randomized experiment in the history of Cambridge. It was commissioned in 1936 by Dr. Richard Cabot, a Boston physician who proposed an experiment to evaluate the effects of early intervention in preventing or reducing rates of juvenile delinquency. And it was started in 1939 by Edwin Powers and Helen Whitmer, and I think she's still alive. I've seen videos with some woman talking about it, and I believe that was her, but I may be wrong. Of planning for the study, it was 506 boys, ages from 5 to 13, who lived in youth facilities in Massachusetts, and they were taken to this camp, and they're counseled, and they're tutoring, and kind of all this crap made to help these people, or these boys, to get out of kind of this bad path. Then they did follow-up studies, and this is what is the real interesting part. For the initial and 10-year follow-up, there was either no difference or a greater rate of negative results as reported by the authors. 30 years after the initial experiment, about 95% of the participants were found by using public records and surveys by Joan. The program has no impacts on juvenile arrest rates measured by official or unofficial records. The program also had no impacts on adult arrest rates. There were no differences between the two groups in the number of serious crimes, age at when a first crime was committed, age when first committing a serious crime, or age after no serious crime was committed. So basically, in a nutshell, it either had no effect or it made things worse. And I actually came across this because I saw a video about Jordan Peterson talking about this. I think he even interviewed the woman a little bit on this. I can't remember. But he was talking about this. And he was talking about this exact thing, that people constantly have these good ideas and they're well-intentioned, but whenever they actually do it, it just all goes to hell in a handbasket. You know why? Because things are damn complicated. You know, it's not just, oh, here's a problem and here's a lofty solution and this is going to fix it. It's like, no. An example of this is that just giving a homeless person money doesn't make them smarter. It's not going to get them off of the streets. And so with that said, I want to go into this. Let me find that video. Okay, no, it was this video right here. And so he's going to talk a bit about how money does not solve problems for people.
One idea that's very common in our culture is that poverty is caused by lack of money, and that's a really stupid idea, because money is very difficult to handle. I have clients who were, drug addicts, and the worst possible thing that could happen to them was that they got some money. They're just done, first of all. They were hanging around with people who were a little on the sociopathic side, and so, especially if they weren't that bright and couldn't defend themselves very well, as soon as they got money, well, it was off to the bar with all the friends. And one guy I remember in particular, every time he got his disability check, he was gone for 5 days. He usually found him in a ditch, because he'd just go to the bar, spend every cent he had on alcohol and cocaine, and wake up in a ditch, 3/4 dead, eventually completely dead. And then he was ashamed and horrified and repentant, and he'd straighten himself out again, and then that was all well and good until, as long as he was broke, until the next check showed up, and then bang, the same thing. So, it's not like money is necessarily a good for.
Yeah, you want to kill somebody who has problems? They know this because it's been going on for an extremely long time. Is that if you have somebody who has problems with alcoholism or drug abuse problems, if you want to kill them, give them a ton of money. They'll overdose. They'll die. Because giving them money does absolutely nothing to help them with their alcoholism or their substance abuse. It does nothing. It's just, I don't have money and now I do. It's just paper. It's stupid. And it's the same thing with all these politicians and all these things that they want to introduce to everybody about critical race stuff, because they don't care. They don't care. They are politicians. They are out there looking for votes, and they will go with whatever the masses. And so if the masses are stupid, such as if they don't have good information, if they don't have good, accurate, up-to-date information, how are they even expected to make good decisions? If all they're getting is a bunch of manipulation all over the place. So what are some of the things that we can do to help with this? Well, for one, is that we can teach what ethics are. And I'll be doing a video about this. I will be doing a video going in depth a little bit about what ethics are, what do they mean. So let's start with you right now, my friend. Tell me, what are ethics? I want to hear it. I want a clear, precise definition. Don't look up. What is it? Many of you probably don't know. Could you write a 500-word essay on it? Chances are it's not because you're stupid. It's because you're ignorant. And as the phrase goes, ignorance is bliss. Little children are ignorant. It's not because they're stupid. It's just because they don't know. Nobody's told them. You didn't magically learn that 1 + 1 = 2. Someone taught you that stuff. But until somebody taught you that, you were ignorant. So it's not the same. Stupid and ignorant are not the same thing. Same thing with this. Why don't you know about ethics? Because chances are, nobody's ever taught you about ethics. And if you have learned it, chances are, that was not ethics. But this would help. This would definitely help. That if people had some kind of understanding what ethics are. What's the good, what's the bad, and why. And I would rather have that instead of something like diversity training. So right now, this does not have a side A or side B because who supports corruption? I cannot imagine that there are very many people at all who support corruption. I mean, the people who are corrupt, I guess they would. So I have a subsect here of 2B, and this, I guess you could say, would be 2A. So what are some policy and actions, and I have actions because an action could be abolishing bad policies. One of the things is to have checks and balances. That we can put checks and balances of the people for the people against the government. To put them, that there's a segment where, okay, and I'll get back to that Jordan Peterson one there because I have this here. Because right now the problem is that the checks and balances, it's mainly with the government checking itself. It's like you checking your family. How easy is it going to be for family members to put each other in check, especially if they're all adults or they're the same age? For brothers and sisters to put each other in check. It's hard. But that's kind of what this is. I think the same way with police and internal affairs where they're supposed to be checking on police. It's like, really? That's your solution? Shouldn't it be some kind of neutral third party handling that instead of the police? You expect the police to check on the police. That just sounds so stupid to me. What else can we do? Having checks and balances is one. How about transparency? Why isn't everything transparent, or at least mostly? So, for example, if it's not top secret, then it should be made public. If this isn't dealing with some kind of covert military operation, maybe for, and that could go on for a long time, and maybe for a shorter period of time, maybe some things with criminal activities and what the police and detectives are doing. Yeah, I get that. But why don't we have 100% complete total transparency with everything with the school system? What about medical? What about with roads and transportation? Housing? What are you talking about? Why should any of that be secret? That makes no damn sense whatsoever. We should be able to check in to know what the hell's going on. And that something else is that the power of the government should be coming from the people. The government works for us. So I guess this isn't necessarily a policy, but just kind of the mindset that we want to have. Because I'm so tired of politicians just running over everybody. That they lie about what it is that they're going to do whenever they get into office. Then they do a complete 180 with all that. And the answer to that, one of the things that we could do to make things better is that whenever a politician is running for any office anywhere, there should be a website where you can go to from the government that has everybody who's running and the positions that they're running on. And then if they happen to win and they get into their office, then they cannot deviate because this is supposed to be what won them the election. Make them be held accountable. And it could go on a little bit further to say that if they can't even do like half of their campaign promises, then you could say, well, you know what? You're a failure. You didn't even do half of the things that you said. Why should we continue to allow you to be in politics anymore? It's like, you shouldn't. We have more than enough people that we can find somebody else to run. Thanks, but no. What else can we do? To be able to fire people that make our laws. Yes, why? So we're going to go to a video, one that we were watching with Jordan Peterson, with a senator here. And he's going to explain it a little better than what I can here.
Is that the laws, a law consists of a set of words that prescribe a...
And so I might object, well, if it's had those positive effects, then what's the problem? Why worry about it? And so I would like to know that. Why is that a problem?
Because...
And they're talking, I think it was something to do with the environment, with like a clean air policy, and he's like, it's good, but the way that they went about it was wrong. It was the president who put this into action instead of Congress. You know, there was no election process with this. It was just the president kind of creating this department or whatever it was that they were talking about. And it's like, yeah, it's good, and we're not saying that it shouldn't have been there. We're just saying that the way that they did it was wrong. So, but, and then he's going into the problem with not going through the process, which is kind of an election process and a voting process. So,
because our government needs to be ours, and that means that the laws, a law consists of a set of words that prescribe a rule of general applicability, imposing affirmative obligations on members of the public. When a law, thus understood, is prescribed in our system of government by the federal government at the federal level, you have to follow a formula for it to be legitimate. And that's true for not just the philosophical constitutional reason, but also for the practical reason that you don't want the lawmaking power, which is the most dangerous of the powers of government, to be ever in the hands of people you can't fire. They work for you. And if you can't fire the people who make these laws, as well-educated and well-intentioned as they might be, you got a problem.
Mm-hmm. So you see something like a drift.
yeah, so absolutely. I'm so fed up with the lack of accountability of these politicians that if they go off and they're just rambling some kind of nonsense, and it's just... So it's like the Biden administration, the Trump administration, the... who was that before? Obama administration. They just enacted all these policies. Nobody voted on this stuff. It didn't go through Congress. These weren't elected officials. They just said, we're going to do these things. We're just going to put these people to regulate all this stuff. And it's like, screw you. Nobody voted for this. Who the hell do you think you are? And it's like, I don't give a damn who you are. President of the United States, the more power that you have, the harder the responsibility needs to be on your shoulders to do what you were supposed to do. Not to go out and campaign and lie your butt off and then just throw it all out the window whenever you get into power to appease your constituents. Screw you, pal. The purpose of that job there is not to fill your pockets. You're supposed to be doing what the people want. And yes, that's going to mean that sometimes there are going to be some things that you don't like, but you're going to have to suck it up. It's been going on forever. There's been plenty of times, I'm in my 40s, where there have been people who have been in office. It's like, what is this nut job doing? And you know what? We can recover from it, no matter what it is. It's happened continuously. So I'm tired of this. So we need to have policies that allow us to fire politicians. And so then we were talking about teaching ethics, and how do you ever know anything if you're not taught? And that's the whole thing with diversity training. So I kind of agree with this a little bit. I don't agree with the diversity training, but I do agree with teaching ethics. I want nothing to do with that white people or black people are better or worse because of their color of their skin. No. How about your values? How about your actions and what it is that you're really doing? Yeah. So some of you who might be watching might be under the mindset of, well, we just need to burn the system down. It's like, no, because then that's just chaos, and then people are going to do all kinds of crazy, stupid stuff. That's not the answer. The answer is, yes, we work with the system, and the system isn't perfect, but we make it better. It's not just throw it all out the window. That's idiotic. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? The answer is, you make it better. What can you... There's plenty of things, right? We're going through it right now. What can you add to it? Being the American system, you can easily argue that what we have here is one of the best systems in the entire world. Why would you want to get rid of that? That makes no sense at all. What makes sense, though, is saying, well, no, it's not perfect, but we can make it better. Absolutely. Especially if we all come together. Because if one person can make it better, what if we have two people working on it? Or 3, or 4, or 5. The more people, the better, right? There is a caveat, and that is we do need to propagate the people who are truthful and honest, and the best way to help with that is, well, at some point in time, I will have this done. So what else do we need? We need not just a law, but laws to dismiss from service if found to be involved in corruption. Absolutely. We need to have laws in place that dismiss these politicians from service if they are found to be corrupt. What's a great example of this? What's a great example of this? The sex offender list. I do not agree with the sex offender list. You're supposed to go and do your time. You've done the crime, you do your time, and then you're done. Now, I'm partially in favor of it because I don't want those people to go and work. If they're sex offenders, they do not need to work with children. If you go out and you shoot a gun, you don't hit anyone, but you're shooting it at people, and fortunately you just missed, you should not go work at a weapons store. If you are a politician who's found to be corrupt, then your political career is over. There's plenty of other jobs. Why is it always a one-way street? Oh, we can ruin your life for your actions, but not a politician. What? Oh, I'm going to go back to another Tom McDonald, whatever that guy's name is. I mean, it's common enough that, songs are being made about it, so.
If you lie to the government, they'll put you in prison. When they lie to all of us, it's called being a politician. You think taking guns away will save our kids from the killings, but your pro-choice abortion kills way more children.
Oh man, the hypocrisy, the double standards. So Tom McDonald Snowflakes is that one. I probably won't put a link to his song here, but it's right there. You can Google it yourself. Tom McDonald Snowflakes. Just do Tom McDonald and you can see all of his songs. I haven't heard all of them. I've only heard this one and that People Are Stupid song. Yes. Why is that even a thing? And this should be for all of them. I've heard plenty of stories too. The same thing with teachers and police officers where they get caught doing something stupid, and instead of being fired, they just go work somewhere else. They go work at another police station or another school. It's like, no, it's done. It's over. You screwed up. Now, of course, there are plenty of little things where it's like, no, it's a little slap on the wrist, or it's not just you keep your job or you get completely fired and destroyed from it. There's everything else in between, depending on what it is. So what else do we have? Oh, yes. Cameras in most government offices. Now, not all. There are some things that are top secret, but for the most part, yes, the majority of these politicians, they need to have cameras all over the place all the time, and they never should get shut off. And if they have something that is really secret, something that people do not need to know about, then there should have to be some kind of a process that they go through so that they can go to a room that does not have cameras. Or maybe that it's a camera where it's on a tripod, you bring it in, it's not connected to anything, but for everyone else, like in a politician's office, a secretary, a senator, governor, that camera is hardwired. It's all over. They've got cameras all over the place, constantly recording, and at any time, at any moment, anybody can watch that camera to see what the hell's going on. No more deals behind closed doors. And I know that really wouldn't do it, because then they could just leave and go somewhere else. But you shouldn't make it any easier than it should be. It's the same thing with building like a border wall. It's like, is that going to stop illegal immigrants from coming over? No. But it makes it harder. Just because it's not this perfect utopia thing, that doesn't mean that you don't do it. Does it make things better? Yes. So I'm all for cameras. Yes, they need to be held accountable. It's like, good luck, because you know what? They should be required to come in, and there should be some things that they do have to do. Like they do need to meet with other politicians. They need to be meeting with people and representatives and all this stuff. And it's like, we want to know what you're saying. This is not a job where you get to go around screwing people over to fill your pockets. So what is this site? This is www.mycontroversy.com. I'll probably put this link down in the description below. I don't agree with all this stuff. Speed up the work process in government institutes. It's like, that things change all the time. I mean, it sounds good, but I don't know how you can really apply that. Because if you set down some rules and policies, then things are going to change. There's going to be some kind of new technology or something, and then it's... Number 7, I do like. Make media responsible and fix the law to be so. So what is this? This is enforcing the laws that are already there. We already have a lot of laws that talk about this, whether what is it, YouTube, whether if you're a platform or a publisher. It's like YouTube should 100% definitively say that we're a platform or we're a publisher. And then whatever their terms of service are, that if they break their own terms of service, then it should be easy. It should be easy to take them to court. It should not be difficult. And one of the things that we can do, and I think this is the list that talks about this, is increasing the size of the courts, and to do our best to bring the prices down so that we can take all of this corruption and take it to court. Anyways, moving on. Verify the selection procedures. I don't know exactly what they're talking about. Some of these things that I pulled up, they were talking about with all nations. So, but it's with this stuff, it's like, if you want to run for office, you can. The higher up you get in government, the more kind of restrictions you have. So, like being the president, you have to actually be an American citizen, born American citizen. You can't be someone who immigrated on over and run for president. That was one of the big things with Obama, was that they wanted to see his birth certificate, because if you're not born in the U.S. or born as a U.S. citizen, then you can't run for office as president. Keep inflation low. Yeah, absolutely. It's like there's so many things that we could do to keep inflation low. One of the things is to put a limit to government spending, because there are definitely ways that you can manipulate that stuff to work in your favor. And people who are going to be able to do that the best, it's going to be politicians and all these huge companies, because they have plenty of money. So one of the things that you can do is that if you do have a business, you would probably want to set up some shell companies in other states or other countries. Oh, do I have this up? Yep. So an example of this is, which states have no income tax? There are 8 states: Alaska, Florida, Nevada, South Dakota. Here in Texas, we do not have a state income tax. And Wyoming and Tennessee. So you can, well, in this state, we're going to set up the manufacturing jobs that are already that are. You wouldn't want to set that up in a big farm area. They're not going to know how to deal with the machines. If you set it up where they already have that industry there, then okay, great. And then you set up a shell company in like Texas, and you say, all right, we're going to double pay you, because it's pretty common for you to hire friends and family members, and they're going to have pretty high positions, but you're going to pay them very little. You're going to just pay minimum wage at that first company. And then at the second company, at the shell company, well, the shell company is going to provide tax services, bookkeeping, and paperwork and legal stuff, and it's nonsense. It does kind of this first company. It's just a remote kind of job, and it's like, well, I guess so. And then that's where they get the big salary, because they don't have to pay a state income tax. So you get much more money in return. And they do this within nations too. It's why you might want to set up a shell company in the Bahamas, because that nation doesn't give a damn about what the hell's going on in the U.S. Or you might want to have a Swiss bank account, because the laws they have, banking system is different. They really to protect the banking system. And then global, so many people do that. So if you have a business, then yes, this is something that you should look into to do really kind of tax evasion, but it's legal. Keep transactions online and provide a bill for every purchase. Yes, absolutely, this is transparency. They should not be able to spend money without being 100% completely, totally accountable for what it is that they're doing. Again, unless if it's some kind of top secret stuff with like education and with housing and HUD and Section 8 programs and Medicare and food stamps and all these other programs. There's no need for that at all whatsoever. I do not give a damn what's going on. There's no reason for any of that stuff at all. Speed up the judgments and increase the courts. I don't know how you speed up the judgments. I mean, it's complicated. Increase the court size? Yep, absolutely. You know what? One of the things that they need to do to increase the courts is that there should be a special court system set up specifically just for politicians and any other crooked people. So crooked teachers, crooked cops, crooked whatever, Social Security workers, all of them. There should be a special line set up to send them straight to hell in a handbasket for their corruption. 100%. There needs to be a checks and balances for them. And you know what? One of the things that I'm kind of a proponent of, that I've thought of, is that taxpayer money should go to taxpayers who find this corruption and win an illegal case. Something along the lines of, if you find corruption, a corrupted politician, you take them to court and you win, that the government should have to pay all your legal fees and give you kind of a reward because you've gotten rid of this corruption and this horrible spending, so you have saved the government money because you've stopped the corruption and all this abuse that's going on, and that a lot of this should come from whoever it is that you obliterated. You know, senator, governor, or whatever. From my understanding, Hillary Clinton is pure trash. That she did that whitewashing of her servers where she deleted everything, all those emails and all that. It's like, it should be very easy for people to be able to take her to court and to just, it should not be left up to somebody who's rich or powerful, such as Donald Trump at the time. It's like, no, it should be anybody. That they're answerable to us, to everyone, not just the select few. So yeah, if she needs to go to prison, we should be able to take her to court and do that. If Trump needs to go to prison, or Biden, whoever, it's like every last one of them. Here's one more list. And impunity. I don't know if impunity happens here in the U.S. because this is one of them where they're talking about other countries. And it's like, it's a problem with other countries where they can just kind of say and do whatever with impunity. And it's like, yeah, that's trash. Reform public administrative and finance management. Well, yeah, again, I don't. Promote transparency and access to information. I'm going over this here because down here a little lower is like, what are other countries doing So I like to take a look. Empowering citizens. Yes, this is something that we have better here in the U.S. than we do with other countries. And it's like, I want more with the U.S. And I don't want to go over invading other countries. I want to show them this is what we do and to give our reasons as to why we do this and the effects of it, so that we can say, well, we're not going to invade you and start up a war, but if you want to do this, here you go. Here's our success, so take it and use it for your success too. Close international loopholes. There's no way to do that. There's no way to do that. You would have to invade, because countries are going to say screw you to other countries, and what are you going to do? You would have to invade. So that's ridiculous. So here's an example of tax loopholes right here, and this is Jeff Bezos' salary, and right here, Amazon.com Inc. Amazon filed its 2019 proxy statement Thursday, showing that the founder and chief executive Jeff Bezos is still making $81,840 a year in base salary, just as he has for decades. His base salary in 1998 was also $81,000. Bezos' total compensation last year, which includes no stock awards, was $1.68 million, because of tax loopholes, because of stuff like, well, it depends on the state and the nation, and it depends on what you're doing. So if you want tax loopholes, for example, for real estate, well, there are countries that they're set up to, and designed to help you to do that. There are states designed to help do that. There are, income tax. He specifically is going to get paid in a certain state. He's registered there for a reason. Wherever their headquarters is at is for a reason. Whichever branch is designed for all of it, every last bit of it. It's all there for a reason. Because there's no way that you're going to tell me that this guy who's worth billions, that he's only getting $81,000? It's like, no, he's not. He's getting a lot more than that. And it's because of these loopholes. This is a good place to stop the video. We are running roughly at a little over an hour. If you are tired of the corruption, the manipulation, the fake lies, give this video a like, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, become a member. I've got Patreon, Subscribe Star, and we'll catch you again later. Thanks for watching. Bye.